Good morning. Happy Friday, everybody. I should say Friday because that's how I feel today. I feel like I haven't been on this LinkedIn Live for maybe a week no, I was here with Kim Kopp a little bit ago, but I am just like so excited for today's guest because you basically are just going to have coffee with me and Kelly. And Kelly is a total fierce lady boss. I had the great fortune of working for Kelly during my time at Gartner Digital Markets. And I was yearning for a really strong manager and leader. And Kelly just embodied that in every single way. I mean, people left because of her, continued to want her mentorship because she really understands what it is to be a leader and how to navigate your career. And that's what I want to talk about today. What does it take to build live? Josh, I'm doing a LinkedIn Live. Don't call me. I want to talk about building a career you love because we are focusing here on LinkedIn. It's all about that professional journey. So, Kelly, let's start with your background a little bit, your journey to becoming a CMO. Let's start there. And then let's talk about what it takes to really build a career of purpose and love.
Sure. I hope you can hear me. I feel like I'm freezing a little bit, so hopefully we're okay. I never intended to go down a path of marketing. I was an engineer in college. I went to Texas A&M. Our football team is doing terribly right now, which is breaking my heart a little bit, but that's beside the point. It was, but I loved A&M. I was an engineer, but my first job out of college, or my first internship, my last semester, my boss called and said, "Hey, we had a reorg. It was at Sabre, which was owned by American Airlines. It was the reservation system. He said, we had a reorg and I'm no longer the VP of product development, which is obviously where I was working as an engineer. But I'm now going to be the VP of product marketing. Do you want to do marketing with me for the summer?" And I was like, "Yes, please." I didn't want to be an engineer. I just wanted the best degree I could get from Texas A&M. And so I went into a summer internship in marketing, and I've been in marketing ever since. Literally, that phone call changed my entire career trajectory. And so after that, I marketed to travel agents from this early 2000s, before the .coms and all that good stuff. And so travel agents, as Travelocity, Expedia, Orbitz all started to come out, like our business started to decline because no one was using travel agents anymore. And so I decided I wanted to go back and get my MBA, focus on marketing specifically. I'd never had a business class. And I wanted to move to consumer because I was kind of, frustrated by marketing to a market that I didn't understand, that was declining breed. I was like, I want to move something to something I can understand as a consumer. So went to grad school, and then ended up at Kraft Foods, where I did brand management, and I loved it. And that was like the best marketing training in the world is sort of marketing 101 on consumer packaged goods. So I worked on Chips Ahoy and Nutter Butter in New York, and then in New Jersey, and then I moved to Chicago and worked on Kraft string cheese and Breakstone cottage cheese. And that was all great.
Okay, Chips Ahoy better or cottage cheese?
Well, two big differences. One, if you want to get fat, it's Chips Ahoy. If you want to throw up in the corner of a plant when you're pregnant, it's Breakstone cottage cheese. It was awful. I hated cottage cheese, and there's nothing worse when you are like in your early 6, 8, 10 weeks of pregnancy to walk through a cottage cheese plant. It was awful. But the Breakstone was some of the best if you liked cottage cheese. I just wasn't. So anyway, we had a kid, wanted to get back to Texas. I'm from New Braunfels. And so once we had that kid, I started looking and decided wanted to move into the tech space. That was kind of what Austin had to offer. There wasn't a lot of CPG here outside of Whole Foods and some organic, natural stuff. So moved here, went to Dell for like 15 minutes. I don't know. I wasn't there very long. It was about 14 months. And loved it. But it was fine. I was like pregnant. I got pregnant during that time. I had a little one. And so it was a very manageable life. They took very good care. It was very predictable. I learned about the tech industry. It was great. But the lady who had hired me the one who had kind of relocated me from Chicago, left and went to AMD. And she called and was like, "Hey, there's a job over here that I think you'd be a great fit for once your reload's paid for." So I moved over to AMD. I did brand, go to market, commercial client. demand gen campaigns. And then the COO, she's now the CEO, Lisa Sue, she asked me to be her chief of staff. And so I was her chief of staff for about a year and a half. And so that was like my one kind of break from marketing, but such a huge pivotal change in my career. If you're looking for ways to kind of like accelerate your career one move, being in a chief of staff role, though, does, you know, it's not gonna, you're not gonna have lead a large team. It's usually an individual contributor role. It's usually somewhere around director, senior manager, director, senior director, maybe. But you see the world completely different after you've done that, because you understand what executives care about. You understand what their motivations are, and so you're able to use that filter in all of your jobs after that, because you can put yourself in the executive's shoes. And so it's a really pivotal moment on just seeing the world very differently. And so I did that for about a year and a half, and then my buddy who had been at Rackspace or had been at AMD before, called me from Rackspace, said, "Hey, I need a brand team." Went over there, did some branding, moved through my career quickly over there, brand director, up to senior director of kind of integrated marketing, and then I stood up integrated solutions, solution marketing, vertical marketing, things like that. And just had a ball until my boss, fun story. Can I insert fun stories, or do I need to like stop?
Please, please. Fun stories are perfect.
Yes. It's just because we're talking about career, I wanted to weave it in. So my boss at Rackspace, Carla Pinheiro-Seblet, she's the CMO now over at IBM. But she was my CMO there at Rackspace, and I was a director at the time. I think I had my third kid. So I had 3 small kids. And she came to me and said, "Hey, I want to promote you. I'd like to give you all these other responsibilities. I would like to give you, like, I want you to pick up all of brand and content campaigns, go to market strategy, whatever. And I'm going to promote you." And I think she thought she was handing me a gift, which she was. And I was flattered. But in my head, I was like, or even what I told her, I was like, "No, thank you." She was like, "What?" And I was like, no, I have 3 small kids. Like, I'm home every day at 5. Like, I'm not working weekends. I don't travel. Like, if I stay at this level until my last one goes to college, I'll be okay with that. Like, I'm really content because my life is good. And she was like, "Are you kidding me?" And I was like, "Yeah." She's like, "More money, bigger title." And I was like, no. And she came back a second time, and I was like, "Carl, I'm not willing to trade. Like, these are my non-negotiables. Like, I'm not willing to give those up." And she finally came to me a third time, and she was like, "Here's the deal. I'm giving you the job. You are going to be a senior director. I am promoting you. I am giving you a bump in salary and promotion." And she said, "And I will protect your life. I will make sure you're not working after 5 in the afternoons. I will make sure that you're not traveling. I will make sure you're home every night with your family." And she did, and it was brilliant. So, like, the huge career like moment for me there was just recognizing that by communicating your non-negotiables, but still putting in great hard work, improving your ability, like, great leaders will protect that and make sure, and still ensure that you are promoted and keep giving you the opportunities to grow and expand your career. So, huge gift from Carla.
Well, and I mean, I just love that story so much because one, you took a stand for yourself and your family and what is non-negotiable for you.
Mhm.
And for many people listening, that is nearly impossible because of financial burdens. There's so many things right now that are happening where they feel, not maybe reality, that they can't have that option. But what you're sort of saying is actually it's very possible. You need to set those boundaries and set that tone, especially as a woman. And that's pretty groundbreaking
Mhm.
in and of itself. So I want to point that out. And then to the fact that this was another woman,
Mhm.
that this was another woman who saw everything that you are and didn't take no for an answer and ensured that you could have family and a great career. And Kelly, I just don't think that there are many leaders that are doing this. I mean, can you speak into that a little bit and how we can create that kind of culture, especially today where burnout is literally at the highest.
Yep.
People are just not feeling good. Like, how do we really create that employee morale?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't know. I see it a lot. I see it in, obviously you're seeing the numbers right now of women leaving the workforce, women getting burned out. I myself am on sabbatical right now. And so because I was burned out and I needed a break. And I think that we have to recognize that there are a lot of balls in the air that we all have, right? We are carrying, besides our career and wanting to work the expected number of hours, we're scared to say no. We're scared to decline a meeting when it conflicts with something with our personal life. Because we worry that somehow that's going to come back to haunt us. I think it's about recognizing that I think the first thing is just recognizing that we are full humans. We are not like professional corporate robots, right? Like we all have a full life. And yes, we all should put in our full-time commitment to the job, meaning no one's looking for a shortcut. People are just looking for the flexibility to get both their work and their life done. And so sometimes that means that they're gone at 3:30, but then they're back on at 8:30 after the kids go to bed for another hour and a half to catch up on the day or a couple hours or whatever it is. Sometimes it means that you have shorter days that you're working because of something, but then you're catching up all evening Sunday night. Like it's whatever, works for you. But I think we have to recognize that somebody being offline between 8 and 5 is not a problem. Like it's not necessarily that they're gone. It's that they're managing their life. And to me, output is way more important than hours. And so, what Carla recognized in me was saying, hey, you do great work. We'll figure out the life part. But I want your work ethic on this team. I mean, and it went on. So you can imagine, I said that to her. She promoted me anyway. It was probably a year and a half later is when she got a call from Gartner to come be their CMO in digital markets. And she said, knowing I had just said this a year and a half earlier, she said, hey, I've already accepted a job. She had accepted the role at National Instruments at that point. She said, I've already accepted a job, but my friend Kelly Hopping would be a great person to call. And so they called me and I ended up getting the job. And so like even that pushing back, not only did she promote me there, she also recommended me for a CMO job just a couple of years later, which was a huge win for me and a great accelerator of my career. So I don't think we'll ever lose by investing in great work and great output. And then the rest of the stuff will get worked out.
Can you speak into what you're talking about here? What you've been building is advocates for you throughout your career. Mm-hmm. What I heard you talk about is each role was somebody saying, hey, are you interested in this? Like you have opportunities come to you. And a lot of people don't feel like that. They feel like nobody's advocating for me. So then they don't take responsibility, right? Or then they are advocating for themselves, but nobody's advocating for them. How can we advocate for ourselves in our careers so that these sort of opportunities come naturally?
Yeah, that's a great point. So I think it's a couple things. So yes, I've been super fortunate. I think the last job I applied for was probably in college. Since then, it's all been someone I worked with or someone I knew who called me up and said, hey, I have a great job for you. Come work with me. Come work for me. Come work in this company. And so I got pulled from Kraft, from Dell, from AMD, from Rackspace, from Gartner, and even to my last company. And so I've been really fortunate with that. And that when they come along, I'm pretty open and trusting, right? You also have to be kind of open to the process. Like, wow, this person who I trust and believe in believes enough in me to call me for this role. And so I'm going to give it some attention. I'm going to take that phone call. I'm going to meet with whoever they're asking me to meet with and have that out of respect for them, but also because they know you well by this point. They've worked with you. They know your capabilities. They know what you're good at. So to me, like on how to create advocates, one is obviously doing great work, I think, right, is what people look for. I'm not looking for someone who always had the best gossip in the office. I'm not looking for somebody who worked the longest hours. I'm not looking for somebody who, whatever it was. Like I'm looking for the person who does great work, who does great output, who asks really thoughtful questions, who takes initiative when no one's stepping up to own a project, who have a care about the quality of what they're creating. That's who I'm looking for. The other thing that I always recommend is marketers especially have a tendency to focus on being good functional marketers versus great business athletes. And I think the challenge is that you can be a great designer, but if you don't understand the business or the target market that you're designing for, then the design can miss the mark. You can be great at buying AdWords, but if you don't understand the buyer and what they're looking for and the pain points that they're struggling with, then you're going to kind of optimize wrong. And so what I do is I spend a lot of time studying the P&L of the business, even if that seems like foreign. What you can tell in a P&L is, how is the company growing? Are they growing by increasing revenue, meaning there's momentum in the market, or are they growing their bottom line because they're cutting costs? Okay, well, you can make decisions based on one of those. If it's that they're growing revenue, how are they growing revenue? Look at the double click into that as what are the key drivers of growth? Skate where the puck is going, right? If you know that that's an area, then double down on why that's growing. You can have really intelligent conversations with your boss when you understand the business. You can volunteer for things that are tied to really strategic initiatives in the business. And so then you set yourself apart from your colleagues because you have become now a sort of a business partner, sparring partner with your boss. And they have a ton of respect for that. They don't just want robots executing their commands. They want somebody who's going to challenge them, ask questions, volunteer, step up, get involved in the strategy. And so that's, to me, the way that I've built advocates is just by thinking bigger about the business versus just the marketing piece.
That's huge. That's huge. I mean, I feel like that idea of looking at a P&L is sort of like an MBA kind of thing to do. But it becomes real, like in your MBA, right? You're looking at the P&Ls, you do that. And then in real life, you're right, especially in a marketing function, you're like, I don't need to care that much about it. But it's such a great tip that you can really become a partner of your management team when you're looking into the business and what's driving it. I totally agree with you that marketers and definitely like younger people in their career are not really thinking in that mind, but it's highly intelligent. Also really intelligent if you're listening for interviewing.
Yes. It's a great way to prepare for an interview. You can figure out the strategy real quick by breaking apart the numbers.
Oh my gosh. And if you look at that and you see that there's growth in one area and you're just like, I saw that you're growing in this, quarter over quarter. And I'm curious, like I would be blown away because nobody comes with those kind of questions, right, Kelly?
Sure. Absolutely. No, they never come with that. They'll come. Now, granted, people will come and ask about culture and about leadership style and all this stuff, which is super important. And to me, probably my number one driver above anything else. But yeah, I mean, the numbers are helpful. I think if you're interviewing and you're saying, hey, I noticed that this business is growing 30% a year, man, what are y'all doing to drive that growth? How has marketing contributed to that growth? You don't have to know a lot more beyond that, but it's enough that kind of says, I'm interested in being a part of the growth, meaning I'm here to play. Like I'm here to kind of get my hands dirty, which is a great sign for an interviewer.
Absolutely. I want to talk about executive presence. Yes, because creating a career you love, and I'm going to go now. This to me, executive presence is your personal brand, right? So, and ultimately, you're talking to Rachel B. Lee, and I'm the branding lady boss, right? And when you create a career you love, your personal brand is super important, and how you're showing up, in the team meetings, in the executive meetings, right? When you're with clients, customers, whatever. Kelly, talk about the do's and don'ts. Start with the don'ts of building your brand.
Yeah, I have to think about that. I mean, it's so interesting, right? Because the way that we present ourselves professionally and personally used to be very separate. Now they blur together quite a bit, right? And in some ways you want to kind of keep them separate, but you also have to recognize that the world is so much smaller than it used to be because it's all digital, it's all connected, you can find anything. So publicly, I mean, anything you say can be kind of, affect your brand, whether you're talking, whether you're posting it on LinkedIn, whether you're posting it on Facebook or Instagram, or whether you're commenting on some snide Twitter comment, right? All of them are sort of a reflection of your brand. But to me, they're so highly integrated. And I think that's what's so important. And so I think about like, what do you want to stand for? And that doesn't mean that you have to stand for some like, strong opinion on some controversial issue. I just mean like, what are you willing to own, and what do you have not that strong of an opinion about? Like, so to me, when I make a comment about something I don't have a strong opinion about, I am setting myself up to get like slammed, because I don't care enough to have it. Why am I opening my mouth on this? I don't, I don't feel strongly enough to kind of like take a beating for it. And so I always think about those two. Like, let me figure out what I'm actually passionate about. Let me talk about those things. Otherwise, I should probably stay out of that conversation. As
like,
far
don't
as
ask Kelly about Texas A&M because
right. I mean, certainly not football right now.
Yeah, like, don't get into football because she will go on and on. She knows it all.
I mean, yeah, if you want to talk about youth sports and youth football, I am your
all
guest.
day, every day.
My number one passion in life is youth sports, or anybody who's not being paid for it. And so I love that. But yeah, so I figure out those things I'm passionate about. At work, I feel like it's, some of your brand comes to life there, and it certainly carries, right? I mean, you talked about the advocate question. Is the advocates that are because they know you, like when you're not on camera, they know you when you're not in front of a customer. Your people at work know the comments you're making in the break room. They know the comments that you're making, the emails that you're sending that are like snide and tacky and like quick fire off emails when you're mad. Like, I just feel like it's so important to kind of take a hot second and breathe. One of the things that my kids' youth tackle football coach this year, he has a rule. It all goes back to sports, right? He has a rule that says if you you have to wait 24 hours before you send him an email after a game. In other words, like, because if you get in the car and fire off that email, or fire it off like while you're in the stands because your kid didn't get enough playing time, like whatever, you wait 24 hours, either the situation will have worked itself out, you will have calmed down and put your thoughts in order. And I thought, man, that is brilliant advice. Like, I want to use that rule for myself and also as guidance for my team. If you get ticked at me, totally fine. I encourage my team to get mad at me if I do something, like call me out on my stuff. But wait a hot second before you send it off, before you confront me, because you're probably going to say something that you don't actually intend, or you're going to say it in a way that's not constructive. And so to me, that's when you talked about things you don't do on a personal brand. It's probably react without thinking.
So big.
Yeah.
So big. And you taught me something around, when those fiery moments in between teammates, you just said, Rachel, always assume positive intent.
Yeah. Yeah. I used to tell you that with at work. Yeah. It's I think that's another hard thing, right? Digitally, it's hard sometimes, like when you lose tone over Slack or email.
Yes.
Right. And sometimes you can fill in the gaps of things you don't know without a proper conversation. And so I always think, okay, and it's not natural, right? Like, I'm going to teach myself this over like 20 years. But before I walk into a room or walk into a conversation that I'm frustrated about, like, let me assume that their intentions were pure. And from that, you can be like, okay, if I do that, I'm going to be open to listening. I'm actually going to consume. I'm not putting up my wall of defensiveness. I'm actually going to listen. The other thing is take responsibility for whatever part you played. Even if the betrayal was this and you played this tiny part, apologize for this tiny part. All it does is sort of disarm the conversation very quickly to be like, hey, like, I have a friend I just had a situation with, and I remember just being like, I'm so sorry. Like, and in my head, I'm thinking there's 20 other things that went wrong in this, but I can't control that. What I can control is this one part that I played, and I'm going to take full responsibility for that. And it all of a sudden breaks down walls, and all of a sudden everybody else is coming out and being like, yeah, you're right. I'm so sorry too. I messed up this and this. And there's just something beautiful about that. I know we're off of branding now, but these are all important things.
No, it's all really related, because the moments that you're talking about right now, where it is heated or it is confrontational with a client, with anybody, that's exactly where your personal brand is going to either accelerate or fail. Right? These are the moments.
That's how you lose advocates right there, right?
Exactly. And it's not just like I guess something happened at Acura. He's bringing his car and he just did a mean tweet. So
because he feels passionately enough to say something about that, right? If he would
Right.
have known about Acura if he didn't own one, it's because he
Right.
believes in it and he has a place of authority for that.
Exactly, exactly. And so like there's that kind of minute, but then there's what you're talking, I think, in these team dynamics. And it's in this like Slack teams, like all the digital tooling, it's a lot more complicated. Like there's a lot of reading in between the lines right now.
For sure.
Um and what you know what you're talking about here, just acknowledging and kind of coming in with like, I just want to walk away with this peacefully
Yeah.
and like move on.
Yeah.
That idea of moving on is not something that I think is practiced in corporate culture. Instead, it's like they talk here and then these two talk here, and like the leadership really saying, no, 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 we need to have a clearing conversation, acknowledge, and move forth.
Well, yeah, we
I
used to
think
have
it's really
a value, like one of our core values at Rackspace was called take it to the racker. And it was just like, don't talk about this with your peers. Don't escalate immediately. Like, go talk to them face to face and have a dialogue. And usually you can cover, I mean, you can clean out, any tension really quick. For me, one, I never think about like finding brand advocates at work and stuff. But what I do think about is I hate the pit in my stomach. I hate the feeling of tension with someone. I hate knowing that someone is thinking bad thoughts about me at that moment. And so for that, I want to just like dive straight into it and be like, let's talk, let's get this over with. Cause like, let's clear the air here because I need to be able to sleep and eat. And I can't with this pit in my stomach. So part of it's just about like constantly kind of clearing the air out.
Yeah. And it's really critical if, you're CMO and you've made it all the way to the top, and, now you've had the opportunity to go on sabbatical, that like, as a leader, those are the qualities we must embody.
Mm-hmm.
The people that have the pit in the stomach and just let it be and do the crap talking, like that is not leadership. That's just not leadership in today. And we want to surround ourselves with the best leaders. Doesn't mean we don't do things wrong, right? Or what you're saying. And I just love that. And I think it's really critical to building a career that you love.
Yeah.
And so we are going to wrap up, Kelly. But I have to ask around the being a woman and taking a sabbatical.
Yeah.
And so many women, men too, like men, women, doesn't matter. Like, gosh, if I could take a sabbatical right now, and you did it.
You did it.
What did it take for you to just do that? What did you feel? How did you just go for it?
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely like I was super blessed in that sort of the stars aligned in terms like there's so many little things that get in the way of being able to take a sabbatical. One, like if I do this, do I have benefits? Do I have medical benefits to be able to like do this? So there's a situation if you're single, if you're married, like on how to figure that out. That's a complication. I was blessed in the fact that I had benefits through a couple months, and then my husband's picked up. And so we were able to cover that gap. Planning ahead, right? Like having savings in place that you can actually take that time, or that you're willing to kind of tighten the purse strings over that amount of time. Those were sort of once those are like requirements, right? That's like the bottom of the hierarchy. But but emotionally, like for me, what happened was I hit a point where I was interviewing for new jobs, and the interviews are going great companies, super like optimistic about the possibilities with them. But I realized that every time they talked about like wanting to schedule the next interview or wanting to move fast toward an offer, I was like hyperventilating a little bit. Like, I don't want to move this fast. I'm not ready. And so I had this feeling of like, I need a break. Like the thought of starting another job for some reason just felt overwhelming and exhausting to me. And I was like, no, I need a break. And so I just sat down with my husband and kind of said, hey, let's look at the financials. Like, what can we do here? And we looked at it and we said, you know what, like we are good. Like without ever kind of going deep into savings, like we can cover 6 months. And so let's do that. And so I was like, okay, so I'm going to take 6 months off. And all of a sudden, like I had this lightness on me at the idea of doing it. But I'll tell you what my fear was. My fear was, and this is such a sad fear, and I hope that we figure out how to fix this. But my fear was, there's going to be a gap on my LinkedIn. Like, what do I do with this gap, right? A 6-month gap looks like I was unemployed and couldn't find a job. This looks like I'm lazy and didn't look for anything. This, I don't know what, but I had this like fear, like because if I'm looking at a resume and I saw somebody, I'd be like, what'd you do for 6 months here? Like you were out of work for a year. Like, tell me what it is if I was interviewing a candidate. And so we thought about that. And so I talked to my girlfriend, Megan Leaders. She's the CMO over at Silicon Labs. And she was like, here, you need to listen to this podcast. And she had just recorded one 2 days earlier, which was the craziest thing. It was late July. She'd just done one July 27th. And she said, it's about a 6-month sabbatical I took 3 years ago. She was like, just listen to it. And so I listened to it and I was like, yes. And the way she did it and the way I have done it is she just owned it. She controlled the narrative and said, you know what? Hey, guess what, LinkedIn universe? I'm taking 6 months off. I'm claiming a job title as chief sabbatical officer. I am making my priority, my family, my mind, my space, my heart, my, focus, my light, whatever it is. And I'm going to own this time, and I'll be back in January. Like, I'm very clear. If you look at my LinkedIn, I'll be back in January, but right now. And so I get companies that call all the time and say, hey, we saw your LinkedIn. January is totally fine, but we'd love to go ahead and lock this in. Can we talk now? And I'm like, sure, we can talk now, but just know that I'm not starting before January. And they're great with that. But again, those communication of your non-negotiables, and that communication of like taking control of your own story versus people filling it in for you, was such a gift. And so I've been really, really encouraged by the time to get to just breathe, sit, do yoga, except I did a hot power yoga class the other day that destroyed my life. It was the worst hour of my life. I counted every minute. But anyway, so I'll never do that again. But other than that, I've done a lot of just downtime, writing, reading, decompressing, doing a lot of introspection on my last 20 years and saying, what did I love the most? What did I hate the most? And what do I want to do next based on what I've learned about myself? And I'm getting a lot of clarity about what I want to do next. So
it's so powerful, Kelly. It's such a inspiration, I think, for every person. And I love what you mentioned here about listening to your body. We do not take those cues that come from our heart and our mind and our soul. And when our body is telling us that something is wrong, we just ignore it. That's what happens, right? Because of the freak out. And it's really powerful that you listen to that. And I take that to heart. And I really hope people that do watch this, you have to, nobody's going to guide you more than yourself. Sure. And the idea that you controlled your narrative. I talk a lot about this. Mm-hmm. And I love it. I love that you post about it. I love that you have chief sabbatical officer, so freaking genius, so smart, because that's exactly what personal branding is about. You want to control what people are talking about, how they perceive you, and just owning it. You are an inspiration. Adriana was watching a little bit, which is amazing. I'm actually talking to her in a little bit.
Hi, Adriana.
But the building confidence, absolutely. Kelly, thank you so much for being here. Please reach out to Kelly for anything. And I will see y'all soon. Have a great weekend. Until next time.
Awesome. Thanks.
Bye, everyone.